Hello, my dear viewers, and welcome back to a new series, Let's Fight. Although I may potentially change it to a different title later down the line, we'll see. However, heavily inspired by Anthony Fantano and Joey's series of similar names like Answer Me Senpai, Let's Argue, and Let's Fight, I love those guys to death. They are amazing content creators. Please check their channels out. They are awesome. I will leave links in the description. And I'm not necessarily trying to steal their thunder. I just really like the idea of the series. I think it's simple, but quite fun. And I want to be able to use this as a platform to further interact with my amazing fans and subscribers. So, I will be taking your hot takes, questions, and more, and we will be taking a look at them together and kind of having a sort of pseudo-debate slash argument based on certain questions that I have asked. And for the first episode, I decided to ask my audience what they thought the worst death battle of all time was. Now, as some of you know, I already made my list of what I think is the top 10 worst death battles of all time, and I also made a community list where you can vote on what you think is the worst death battle of all time. I will leave that in the description as well. But I thought, let's ask my fans what they think is the worst, and I got some pretty interesting responses, so let's not put this off any longer. Let's take a look at what you guys think. Peach versus Zelda was a pretty bad one. Zelda is actually a capable fighter who can seal demonic entities away, and you have her lose to Peach, a damsel in distress. Really? I think that episode received a lot of negative reception that was just as much as Goku versus Superman according to some sources. But yeah, Zelda would obliterate Peach. Now, while I do agree with you on this, I do feel there was more you could have added, such as the inconsistencies where Death Battle gives Peach any power or stupid feat, irregardless of the stupidity of it, such as trying to use the soccer game to prove that Peach is stronger based on how hard she can kick a soccer ball, which is ridiculous because a soccer ball is not the equivalent of a human skull. And let's not forget that Hylians in Legend of Zelda have proven themselves to be beyond your normal human beings. Like Zelda, Link, they can take more abuse than a freaking soccer ball. And of course, they don't give Zelda her rapier, despite explaining that she does have a rapier and is skilled in using it, and we even see her use this same sword in Hyrule Warriors, and they just completely ignore it. For what reason, I do not know. And also is ignoring the fact that Zelda has access to one of the three pieces of the Triforce, which has been established as one of the three gods that created Hyrule itself. Thus, it's reasonable to assume that Death Battle, who said that Ganondorf was at least planet level based solely on his Triforce piece alone, then we could reasonably assume that Zelda and Link also have this same level of power from their Triforce pieces. Also, the Triforce grants immortality, so how would Peach be able to just kill Zelda so effortlessly? It makes no freaking sense, and we've seen Zelda fight alongside Link, and while Peach has also fought alongside Mario on occasion, it's mostly been as a support or healer, never as a fighter. She does not have that same degree of combat experience that Zelda does, and Zelda is far more intelligent and has far more wisdom than Peach would, and likely has vastly more superior magic. So it's absurd to just say, well, the light arrows don't work on anyone that's not evil, even though Peach has been possessed by evil entities before. It's just a freaking mess. But I will save any more rant for a review in the future because I want to get through all your guys' responses. Note that I will not be reading this one, as I've had to re-record this one too many times. No offense to you, CJ, you're a nice guy, but good lord, can you please proofread your comments next time? This was an absolute nightmare to read. But to sum it up, I absolutely agree with a lot of his points, and as he points out at the bottom portion of the comment, that, as I pointed out, when it becomes War Greymon, Charizard's attacks should become more powerful, not weaker. War Greymon would be the equivalent of a Steel-type Pokemon, essentially. Thus, his fire attacks should do twice the damage. And the utterly asinine argument that, oh, well, War Greymon's weapons, when he becomes War Greymon, are designed to kill dragons, even though Charizard is not a dragon. If you look him up, he is actually classified as a flying fire type, not a dragon type, so that argument makes no sense. So they're willing to try to pull this BS that, well, War Greymon has weapons that are specifically designed to kill dragons, so therefore it would kill Charizard, but completely ignore that when War Greymon becomes War or Metal Greymon, Charizard's attacks should deal twice the damage based on the super effectiveness system. And you can't say that this is using video game mechanics, because even within the context of the anime, they acknowledge the rock, paper, scissors mechanic even in the anime. So you can't use that as an argument. And of course, as pointed out in my Death Battle Epic Fails compilation, one of their most asinine claims is that, well, Charizard is a slave and Tai and Agumon are friends to the very end on equal footing, so therefore I believe that Agumon would win, even though that's a thoroughly asinine argument, because by that same logic, are the Eidolons and Espers in the Final Fantasy series slaves? Are the Fate servants from the Fate series slaves? Like, what the hell kind of argument is that? Like, oh, Charizard is a slave, look how edgy we are. Like, seriously, that is just so stupid. That is like a freaking comment that you would hear from PETA, not Death Battle, who are supposed to be very smart researchers. And there's just so many problems with this fight. The fact that they composite all the Digidestin into just Agumon's power is freaking nonsense. Like, what the hell kind of logical sense does that make? He should only be getting the power from Tai, not the entire freaking Digidestin. And the part where they have Tai beat the crap out of Red was so uncalled for and just pissed me off. Not only that, but I spoke to my best friend who actually is a Digimon fan and agrees with me that Tai was extremely out of character, so much so that it's kind of uncomfortable at times with how badly they misrepresent Tai's character. I'm not even a Digimon fan, and even I could tell something was off about Tai. He just didn't behave the way they normally would, and my best friend agrees with me that Tai would not behave that way. It just felt like a cheap way to take Red out of the equation because, oh, well, without his trainer, Charizard becomes useless, which is nonsense. We've seen Pokemon act independently. Look at Dawn's Piplup. Look at Ash's Pikachu. And to further shoot the frickin' slave argument in the foot, Pokemon are not required to go into their Pokeballs. It is very much optional. We've seen, once again, from Ash's Pikachu, Misty's Togepi, Iris's Axew, and Dawn's Piplup, that they are not required to hang out in their Pokeball. They do so as an option. If they don't want to go in the Pokeball, they don't have to, and absolutely have the option to refuse to. So the whole slave argument still makes no sense. I don't know where, like, why is it that instead of just power scaling, just saying, like, look, Greymon wins because he's stronger or faster or has stronger abilities or something, why do you have to pull out illogical arguments that make no sense, like, oh, Charizard is a slave or some stupid nonsense like that? It's on par with the logic that they use in Guts versus Nightmare, where, oh, well, Guts fights demons every day, so therefore he would be able to kill Nightmare. It makes no freaking sense. Mere words cannot express how shitty that death battle is. Like, nobody I can think of was happy with that. Like, it was just such a bitter death battle. Like, I genuinely feel like death battle has contempt towards the Pokemon fan base. And while, regardless of if that was Death Battle's intention or not, it certainly comes off that way now, doesn't it? I would say, for me, Ragna the Blood Edge versus Soul Bad Guy. Everything about this death battle is terrible. The way they downplayed Ragna was a complete mess. Yeah, Soul Bad Guy is very powerful and all, but he's nowhere near as strong as Ragna is. If it would have been a Blaze Blue x Guilty Gear crossover special, it wouldn't even be a fight. Now, this is one I've been meaning to talk about for quite some time. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw this death battle, I thought nothing of it because I knew nothing about Blaze Blue, I knew nothing about Soul Bad Guy, I had no clue who these characters were. But since then, I have actually gotten a Guilty Gear game gifted to me on Steam, and I have done more research into Blaze Blue, and I've had Blaze Blue fans come up to me and say, like, you gotta talk about this death battle. They just completely downplayed Ragna. And I've done a little bit of research into it, and I absolutely have plans to review / debunk this episode. It's terrible. Like, the way they downplayed Ragna is absolutely unacceptable. Like, this was Naruto versus Ichigo levels of lowballing. Just horrible. For example, they cite one of his most impressive feats as, oh, he can destroy an entire street with his sword. Like, when they tried to use the whole, oh, Ichigo can lift a bunch of pillars as a way to lowball him, when Ichigo is capable of doing so much more. And it's just insane, and some of the logic they use just makes no sense. Like, they're saying, oh, well, Soul Bad Guy has more belts than Ragna, so therefore he's a better fighter. And I'm over here like, what the fuck kind of logic is that? Like, first off, we don't even know if those belts are actually a sign of their skill, or if they're just there for decoration. Now, it's been a while since I've seen that episode, I might have to rewatch it, but I don't think Death Battle ever explained that those belts are not there just for decoration, which they may very well be. And from a lot of the people that have come to me, they have said things like, if you lowball Ragna, he should at least be universe level, and that's with lowball. And they try to say that Soul Bad Guy is stronger because, well, he destroyed this gigantic eyeball that would insert large amounts of TNT number here, which Death Battle always likes to do. Death Battle only will use calculations when they can use it to lowball a character. And even then, odds are, I'm willing to bet Soul Bad Guy is stronger than that. And this fight is just such a mess. Like, they try to easily say that Ragna's scythe wouldn't be able to do anything to him because, well, he survived the backyard. I need more than that. Does the backyard have the same properties as Ragna's sword? I don't know. Death Battle hardly explains it. And the fight itself was just very mediocre. Like, they could have done more with it. And another thing I just found so amusing in this episode was Death Battle spends a lot of time in that episode trash-talking the script of Blaze Blue, saying it makes no sense, which I find rich, considering that, as you've seen before, and especially in my Epic Fail compilation, Death Battle scripts are a mess. They are really inconsistent and filled with logic that makes no sense. A little bit of projection much, Death Battle, or is it just because they lack self-awareness? But it's just so freaking funny, and I'm definitely going to be reviewing this. I've just been working to do more research on both Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear, because I want to make sure I'm informed. That's what takes me so long to do debunkings. I need to make sure I know everything about the characters so I don't accidentally say anything wrong. But absolutely, this one was terrible. Guts versus Nightmare, an absolutely asinine matchup where the only gimmick is that they both have a big sword. When your entire matchup is a one-note dick measuring contest with swords, you know you've hit rock bottom. The logic for why Guts wins makes absolutely no sense. Like saying Guts wouldn't pick up the Soul Calibur because he really likes Dragon Slayer, and saying that Guts fights demons every day, so therefore he can beat Nightmare. What the fuck? Now, real quick, I don't know if you made a typo or not, Sharon, and I hate to come off as petty, but Soul Edge is the name of the sword that Nightmare uses. Soul Calibur is the sword that was made to destroy Soul Edge. Normally I wouldn't mind, but I'm a huge Soul Calibur fan. I can't help myself. But outside of that, you're absolutely on point. You hit the nail on the head. For those of you who remember, Guts vs. Nightmare was one of the first matchups I ever spoke about in contention for worst death battle of all time. And as I think about it, it only gets worse the more I think about it. Because the results make no sense. The reason for why the characters fight is stupid, and the research is just painfully bad. Like, for starters, when the only reason why these characters are fighting is they both have big swords. Really? Wow, how original, Death Battle. I wonder what other characters have gigantic swords. Now, I'm not saying that Guts should fight Cloud or Ichigo, but when I can easily use the same logic to say that, oh, Guts versus Ichigo or Guts versus Cloud, that's a problem. But the worst part of this fight is easily the results. The explanation they give for why Guts wins makes no sense. Rather than going over their powers, their feats, their abilities, their experience, and explaining who's stronger, they just decide to go in a completely different route, saying, well, Guts fights demons every single day, so therefore Guts can defeat Nightmare. What the hell kind of logic is that? Try this on for size, Death Battle. Charizard fights monsters every single day, so therefore Charizard can defeat Greymon. That's literally the same exact logic that Death Battle is using. And the other big one that makes no sense is saying that, oh, Guts wouldn't pick up Soul Edge because he really loves his Dragon Slayer. What the hell kind of argument is that? It makes no freaking sense. Death Battle. Do you not know why people end up picking up the Soul Edge? It's not because they see a sword and they're like, ooh, big sword, me like. No, it's because the Soul Edge, it corrupts you. It gives in to your darker desires and makes you want to pick up the Soul Edge and use its power. That's the whole point of Soul Edge. People find out about its power and then they want to use its power. Like, how do you not get that, Death Battle? Either that or Death Battle just completely forgot. Now here's the thing, if Death Battle just said, oh, well, Guts wouldn't pick it up because when he has the Berserker armor activated, he just wouldn't care, that would be one thing, but they don't say that. And they don't even do a good job going over the character's strength because, for example, they say that, oh, with the Berserker armor on, Guts' sword strike is as strong as a cannonball, but they don't mention that when he had the Berserker armor on, he was able to damage Grunbeld's skin, which is stronger than steel. And for those of you who are aware of my Kimimorra power scale that I made a really long time ago on Facebook, you would know that being able to damage something that's stronger than steel actually requires a lot of strength, and it goes without saying, the fight was terrible. They tried so hard to make some kind of epic sword fight, but it was just underwhelming. The sword fight was just very brief. The animation was repetitive due to it being sprite animation, and there just wasn't all that much to it. This is a fight that would have greatly benefited from 3D or hand-drawn animation, but in typical Death Battle fashion, they just don't even bother. Tracer versus Scout. Downplaying Scout because of an outlier. They're proven wrong in the same video they use, misunderstanding his equipment, not even giving him his full arsenal or canon MVM upgrades, and just showing blatant Overwatch favoritism. Now this, when I remade the top 10 worst death battles, I had to put Tracer versus Scout on there. Because I'll admit, when I first saw this one, similar to Ragna versus Soul Bad Guy, when I first watched it, I didn't think much of it. I hated Overwatch, and I knew next to nothing about Team Fortress 2. So I didn't really pick up on any of the problems, at least not right away. But after speaking with some Team Fortress 2 fans, Overwatch fans, doing more research, watching videos debunking Tracer vs. Scout, I am just so disappointed that I never spoke about Tracer vs. Scout a lot sooner. It is really terrible, and there is just so much to go over. This is going to get a full review as well someday. I know I spoke a little bit about it in my top 10 worst death battles, so definitely check that out. But in short, absolutely, they downplay Scout for no freaking reason. They show a clip of, oh, well, Scout's best feat was getting blown up by 3 missiles, but we don't see the point of impact, as they show a clip of the missiles blowing up at the point of impact and Scout surviving. And it's just like, death battle, are you okay? Like, are you blind or something? And then similar to Link versus Cloud, they don't give Link or Cloud their full arsenal, because they said, oh, that would make them too powerful or some nonsense like that. And I'm over here like, what the hell? In Death Battle's own words, we are not looking at these characters at some random point in the timeline. We are looking at them at their maximum potential. So why are you not giving Scout all of his feats, all of his equipment? What the hell are you doing here? Also, there's just blatant things that they ignore. For example, they say that if Tracer's thing, whatever it's called, is ever damaged, she just dies. Like, she's not able to maintain her point in the timeline. So, once Scout damaged Tracer's thing, she should have been done. The fight should have ended right there, but of course, in typical death battle fashion, they don't look back at their own script, and they just say a character wins because whatever, I guess. Like, death battle is just so blatantly biased, it's embarrassing. Like, how they make so many missteps, I will never be able to understand. While sure, the fight itself is fine, the research was terrible, and the way they just blatantly screw over Scout is unacceptable. And now we save what I think is the best for last. The Big Head Killer versus Deadpool. It exposes everything wrong with Death Battle. The wasted animation, the highballing, the lowballing, the forced cringy humor, the bad research, the constant throwing characters under the bus. And worst of all, they make Deadpool a glorified strawman of Death Battle's critics, while also refusing to take accountability for mistakes they have made and are fully aware of, instead of taking accountability, relegating it to a cheap joke. Now, this is a tough one for me, because while I am inclined to agree with you on this, Ethan, I still want to say that Naruto vs. Ichigo is the worst. I've always gone back and forth between which of these is worse, Naruto vs. Ichigo or Big Head vs. Deadpool, because both are abysmal and both highlight everything wrong with Death Battle. But I think they're both terrible, but for their own different reasons. Because while Naruto vs. Ichigo is an example of how malicious and cunning Death Battle can be, capitalizing on things like flame wars just to be able to not only regain street cred within certain fan bases, but also to get a ton of views and likes, and whether you want to admit it or not, that is all Death Battle cares about, is the views and the likes, because remember, they make money off of this stuff. So that is what is important to them. And it's the same with their sponsorships. They only get sponsorship money as long as their videos meets a certain quota of views. I've done research into sponsorships, so that is something you cannot deny. But with these other death battles that we have spoken about, while I can agree that they are terrible, it's difficult for me to say that those are the worst. And even in regards to Charizard versus Greymon, and that was a death battle so bad, I watched it one time when it first came out, and then a second time for one of my videos, and then never again. It is a death battle I refuse to watch. But even with those, you can on some level say they have some redeeming qualities. I mean, you look at Tracer versus Scout, you can at least say, well, the research is kind of dog shit, but at least the fight is cool. Same with Charizard versus Greymon. But with these fights, like Big Head versus Deadpool, you have Death Battle trying so hard to try to be self-aware, but not actually doing anything to fix the issues. They're still screwing over characters, their research is still abysmal, their humor hasn't improved by a whole lot, and their scripts are just as bad. Naruto vs. Ichigo has one of the worst scripts I've ever seen. It's so inconsistent. The research is so bad. The fight itself is so poorly written. But with Big Head vs. Deadpool, what originally set me over the edge with that one was the continuity stone joke, where they have the audacity to bring up some of their most controversial fights that they have ever done. Yang vs. Tifa, Gaara vs. Toph, Goku vs. Superman, Link vs. Cloud, and show the proper characters winning. And rather than just acknowledging these mistakes like, hey, we screwed up, and maybe remaking them with the proper results, which would be commendable, no, they want to make it into a joke, because that's all this is to Death Battle, a joke. They don't really care how many fan bases they piss off. As long as they have your view, they don't really give a damn. We are little more than dollars to Death Battle at this point. But again, even to this day, I still have a hard time deciding which is worse, because my gut to say Naruto versus Ichigo, it's so abysmally bad, because you see that Death Battle had the opportunity to do Naruto versus Ichigo for a really long time. They've been getting requests for Naruto versus Ichigo for about as long as when Goku versus Superman was new. And they chose a very particular time to do it, when the whole flame war that Watch Mojo started between Bleach versus Naruto was going down, and they used it to throw Ichigo under the bus, get a bunch of views, and regain some street cred with the Naruto fan base. And sadly, it worked. But with Deadpool versus Big Head, it seems to me like they're trying to appease everyone. And I just don't think it works. But there's just so many other aspects to it. The live action section is nothing more than filler and a waste of time. And it looks so cheap and is filled with the most basic bitch obvious humor you can think of. I mean, for Christ's sake, they make a Fortnite joke, for God's sake. And when Nostalgia Critics' Deadpool costume looks better than yours, just stop making skits. I would rather watch any of the Sprite animated fights than this. I mean, there's so much more I could say, but I don't want to keep you guys here forever. But I will definitely have to think more on which is worse, Naruto vs. Ichigo or Big Head vs. Deadpool. I will get back to you guys on this. But let me know what you think of the first episode of Let's Fight. And if you love this and want to see more, please leave comments and likes, as it will encourage me to make more of these. And I will have the question for the second episode up on my community tab, so look out for that, and I'll see you guys around next time.